I've got so many stories I want to discuss.
Yes, let's do it.
I'm not even sure where to begin. Do I begin with my tube journey yesterday?
Go on.
Where I'm sitting there minding my own business and a guy shambles on and he's really shabbily dressed and he's carrying a massive copy of the Quran.
Right.
And he sits down and, to be fair, he's quite pleasant. You know, he's making eye contact. I wasn't scared or anything. He wasn't like a sin. I didn't think he was about to do anything really bad. He sits down and he opens up his Quran and starts loudly singing Allah Akbar. And I'm just thinking,
weird.
This is just a bit... And everyone just had their heads down. And I'm thinking, yeah, hello, London. You know, is this what's going on? So that's anecdote number one. This is just from a few hours yesterday morning.
Right.
I then get to the tube. I get to Paddington in the tube. And there's a guy wandering around in the tube and he's not badly dressed, got a little suitcase, can barely speak English. He wants to go to Swindon and he's asking me, how do I get to the main line station? So I'm pointing out, you know, the red zigzag thing that means a railway. He doesn't have any idea what I'm talking about. So I decided I'm going to be nice, you know, I'm going that way anyway, so you can come after me. We get to the tube barriers and he wants to tailgate me through the barriers. So in other words, he's not bought a ticket for the tube and he is literally going to piggyback on me, the paying customer. So I whizzed through and I said, you can't, you know, you need a ticket. And I've got the barrier up now. And he said, oh no, I know by ticket. Although in some sort of form of words, because he couldn't really speak English. And I said, no, you can't come through. And I said to the train staff, look, this guy's trying to...
You were lucky there was somebody there, by the way.
I was amazed, right? They were right on the spot. So they are poised, you know, what is the point of them if it's not to tackle this kind of thing? I said, this guy's trying to tailgate me, he doesn't have a ticket. And they sort of said, oh, hello, mate, you need to have a ticket. And he clearly went, well, I don't have one. And do you know what they said then? Oh, through you go then. No. Just waving through the guy that tried to tailgate on the paying passenger. And here's the point. That guy now has the message that he can get away with that every time. And that guy will never pay for a tube ticket.
And there's a lot of that going on, by the way.
And if you don't tackle that stuff, it escalates to... And the next thing it escalates to is shoplifting. So I get a message yesterday from a friend of mine who works for Iceland. And she had witnessed the frozen food supermarket, people coming in and filling up an entire trolley of food and trolleying it out of the store and trolleying the whole trolley, not just the contents, into a waiting van, and off they go. Wow. And apparently this is not unusual. No. And that is what's happening to our society, because if you don't prosecute the small stuff, it just escalates, it spreads, everybody thinks, oh, well, they got away with it, they got away with it, so why don't I give it a go?
And this is exactly what it was like in New York in the early 90s when I left New York, because I just had a child, my daughter, Emma, who was only 2 when we left, but David Dinkins was in charge, and the town and the city of New York was in an absolute terrible mess. There was rubbish everywhere, there was lawlessness, there was pickpocketing, there was kind of mad people standing on street corners shouting, people running up and down the street naked. It wasn't even Greg Wallace, you know, and you know, just the place felt dangerous, and London feels like that now.
Yeah, I've just passed a mad person and standing, you know, in a doorway, just a woman just shouting randomly at nothing, and she seemed very aggressive. Well, clearly no one wanted to pass her on that side of the street. Yesterday my partner saw a guy running around half naked in Mayfair. You know, and this isn't just a London thing, because a lot of our listeners will be able to relate to this in their own town centres. Something very dramatic has changed in the last, I would say it's really almost in the last year. And I think the numbers that have come in as dependents, as you were talking about before, are, even though the figures we got, the official figures we got last week were breathtaking, they were astonishing. They were. I still don't think that tells the whole story. Not by any means does that tell the whole story.
I'm sure there are many more people here that they think they've just lost track of, or they think may have left the country, they're not really sure. I certainly don't believe the net migration figures, because of the people going out. I don't think they're counting them right.
Well, they're just a guess. They are. We know they're just a guess, because last week they just casually uprated them by, you know, plus 200,000.
Oh yeah, we forgot about the migrants.
Oops, you know, oh sorry, we're actually, our actual job is to collect the statistics, but we kind of screwed up by a factor of a fifth or something like that. I mean, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And look, none of us want to be negative about our country. I don't want to talk our country down, But we are in a very, very bad state, I would say. And let's just talk very briefly about the politics of it.
Yes.
I am detecting privately from the Conservative Party, and of course they can't say this publicly, that they realise now, there has been a dawning realisation since those figures last week, that they have done something truly appalling to our country, and that they are not going to be forgiven for it by voters.
Yeah, I think voters will not. I mean, we saw Tim Montgomery earlier, who's now gone over to Reform, and a lot of people saying, you know, they'll never go back to the Tory party because they gave us all the things that we're now suffering from. And yes, Labour can fix it, and they don't seem to be, so we'll criticise them as well. Yeah. But, you know, I was at Edinburgh at the weekend, a place you know well, and I was struck by the fact that, you know, the Royal Mile was full of tourists, it was busy, but it was calm. It was not a place where people were sort of on edge, and it was there were no bleeding mopeds going up and down all over the place. There was nobody cycling everywhere. You know, it was just a very nice, quiet, pedestrian sort of safe place of safety, it seemed to me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Scotland has had plenty of immigration too, but I don't think it's been anything like, you know, proportionately on the scale. And I think, I tell you where's been hammered, Wales, you know, and we're seeing the political ramifications of that as well. I don't spend a lot of time in Wales, but the political shifts there are quite significant. And I think, you know, that the Tories have been in denial about the seriousness of their crime here, their political crime. And I think last week's figures, you know, we talked about them, we will carry on talking about them. They caused such a stir at the time, but the significance is so profound of those figures. And I think there is a beginning of a realisation for the Tory party that they're not necessarily going to be able to turn that around. Yeah,
I think so. And there's a lot of people in the country who still live in parts of the country that haven't been as badly affected as the cities.
Absolutely true.
I mean, this morning we've got Woodbridge in Suffolk, I don't know it, being named as the happiest place in Britain. I've got a tweet here from Sandy, who's a regular listener to the show and viewer, who lives there, and says, Woodbridge in Suffolk has been named as the best place to live in Britain, and long may it stay that way. No migrant hotels, relatively crime-free, very English, community-spirited, historic, quaint and pretty.
And of course,
there's lots of parts of Britain like that.
Absolutely. And do you know, to some extent, that's part of the, in a way, that's part of the political problem. So I live in one such place. I live in a lovely, affluent part of the Cotswolds. And here's the thing. People in my area have a ton of money, sadly not me, but a lot of people there have so much money that they can kind of let what's going on in the rest of the country wash over them. You know, it doesn't affect them, they don't see it, they don't feel it, you know, their communities are not very diverse, if I can put it politely. They don't have mad people rampaging up and down the street shouting, they don't have a stink of marijuana everywhere, there's not homeless people huddled around. And some of these people who are in a position, because they're affluent, to actually exert pressure as thought leaders, opinion leaders, you know, through their businesses on what is happening politically, have for a rather too long just been like, la, 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 it doesn't affect me, let me just spend £5 on a purple carrot, you know. Right.
I know, it's ridiculous. And that is the problem, I think, with our political class to a large extent, that many of them have been in sort of insulated from all of this, and they've made rules in the House of Commons, and they've seen statistics, but they don't recognise what's going on around them. Because if you go to Westminster, you know, even Westminster is changing as the way goes. I mean, I saw, I think he's a sort of activist, and I've never seen him before, but somebody did a video of putting a bike outside of Scotland Yard the other day. I don't know if you saw it. The bike was stolen within about 5 minutes, right? There was CCTV, and he pointed to the cameras. There was CCTV above both points of where the bike was. There was CCTV at the headquarters of Scotland Yard across the street, right? They called the police didn't do anything. Literally stolen from within 5, 10, 15 yards of Scotland Yard.
And that is the issue. You've got to have zero tolerance. You have got to put the fear of God into people about stepping out of line. And then, honestly, everybody's happier. Everybody knows the rules. The rules are applied equally to everybody. and people start behaving properly.
And a lot of the shoplifting will become, as you say, something more. Suddenly they'll start hitting people over the head for things. People will be robbed. I mean, I was with a friend of mine in Glasgow, in Scotland. He doesn't come down here very much. Got a very nice Breitling watch on. He said, I'm coming down to London. I said, don't bring the watch. Don't wear it.
That's so
because
bad.
they'll take it off your arm.
It's so bad to have to say that,
isn't it? Just awful. And meanwhile, front page of the Sun today, Sun Times rather, more criminals are going to live under house arrest and wear tags, because they've got a prison shortfall of 12,400 cells. Labour have got it wrong to the tune of £4 billion that they're not going to be spending. And as I said earlier, Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, says she wants a prison environment outside of prison.
Yeah.
Well, then it's not a prison environment. And how safe are we going to be if all these people are out and about wearing tags?
That just doesn't work. You know, this is a government that wants to spend a huge amount of public money on public projects. We know that. That's what Labour governments do. So how about making those public projects more prisons? I don't think that's really very difficult, do you? I mean, just create some prisons.
Well, apparently Starmer, who's going to relaunch himself tomorrow because he's finally agreed with the rest of us that it's not really going very well and he might have to try again, they're not going to apparently commit to building more prisons, because he says the thing is, lots of people don't want you to build a prison near where they live. Also, build them where nobody lives then.
Yeah, there's still quite a lot of empty spaces in this country. It doesn't matter how many times Starmer relaunched himself. He's still the same person in the same grey body with the same grey face and the same weird glasses that were free but are still too big for his face, and he can't change his voice.
No.
And it isn't... I'm telling you now, it's not going to work. The guy is despised by a large proportion of the population. And it's
harder now to find somebody who actually will back him and support him on anything, isn't it?
And there is talent in the Labour Party. I'm not being party political about this. You know, I was at an event last night and I listened to Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, give a very entertaining speech. And he was funny, he was engaging, he was bright. And I just thought, you know what, you're a load better than Starmer. It wouldn't be hard. Angela Rayner stood up. She gave a funny speech. She's got something about her, hasn't she? She's got a bit of character, a bit of zip. And I thought, yeah, you're way better than Starmer. In fact, pretty much anyone you could think of would give him a run for his money.
Apart from Rachel Reeves, who's just as bad as he is.
No, that's true. Well, there's quite a few bad ones, okay, to be fair. Yeah, but there are a few good ones.
Yes, but you'd like to think that there would be some form of, you know, the thing that's shocked me so much about the Labour government is that they were so poorly prepared. They said they were prepared. They said that
this happens every time, though.
Exactly what they were going to do in the first 100 days. They had Sue Gray in charge of it, and I know we talk about this a lot, but I think you can't emphasise it enough, because I still want to know what Lord Ali was doing. I still want to know the answer to some of those questions that we never got at the beginning. I still want to know what Lord Ali was doing talking to Bashar al-Assad back in 2014 when he was sent over there, you know?
Yeah, no, it's funny how it's a sort of news cycle that things just eventually blow themselves out, and politicians have learned that if they can just keep brazening it out for a certain period, the caravan moves on because, you know, some other story comes up and so on. But I think that was permanently damaging, actually, even if we haven't got answers. And, you know, it will probably get resurrected at some point anyway, the Lord Ali thing. And especially when they think no one's looking, they start doing some bad stuff again. You know, I know how, you know, we've seen it. This is how they always behave. You know, oh, now no one's looking, so, you know, Lord Ali's going to give me something else. They're that daft that they will make those sorts of mistakes again. But I think it totally derailed the beginning of the administration. The combination of the Lord Ali thing and the riots basically knocked them off course. So to go to your point about you can't believe how unprepared they were, I mean, this is very normal with incoming governments. You know, the Tories, it was a bit less the case in 2010 when the Conservatives came in as part of a coalition, because they sort of had to thrash out an agenda with the Lib Dems that they agreed they were going to do, because they were working a partnership. But when Labour came, when Gordon Brown came in, succeeding Tony Blair, and he had spent all that time plotting with his acolytes to oust Blair. No one could believe it because they came in with no plan. You know, and this is just how it is. It's all about getting to the getting into power, not what you're going to do with it.
And I suppose we can't underestimate how tribal they all are, and how there's all sorts of infighting going on, as we saw with Sue Gray and what's his name, the new chief of staff. Morgan McSweeney.
He sounds like a haggis.
Well, I would say he sounds like a pirate. You know, Morgan McSweeney.
Well, I think he's a haggis. dish.
Haggis, possibly so. But yeah, I mean, so they were sort of obsessed with you know, the image. And as I mean, we had a very interesting conversation with John Renton before he went mad on crime, which was about Charles Moore, who found a piece of Alistair Campbell's diary, in which he talks about back in 2004, he said.
Right.
David Blunkett, then Education Secretary, had let it be known that he wanted to put VAT on private schools. And Blair got wind of it and went absolutely nuts and said, we're not going to be dictated to by activists in this party. We're not doing it. Shut him down immediately, because that's not what we're about. And it would now appear that that's exactly what Keir Starmer's about.
Yeah, and indeed, and you know, again, you know, parents with children at private schools are now getting their fee notes for next term. And I'm in one of those parents, and even though we've all been kind of psyched up for it, the reality of that
it's a big jump, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, it's a big jump. And it isn't just the VAT now, because schools have also been hit by national insurance. And I don't think the implications of the national insurance rise are yet being felt. I was speaking to somebody last night who's in the hospitality industry. The family has a business which was just doing okay before this budget. The national insurance rise for employers will put their wage bill up by £100,000. And that is the difference between the company making a profit and just not being viable.
Exactly.
And that's going to take time to have its effect. But when it does, how does Rachel, I'm an economist, Reeves, think that that is going to produce growth?
Well, even Tom Kerridge, who apparently signed his name to a letter, the sort of celebrity chef, telling people they should vote Labour because it's going to be a good idea. He's now going, I wish I hadn't done that, because now all the hospitality businesses that I know are going to go under. Well,
people also, it's a sort of double whammy, really, because not only is the employer's bill so much more and all the extra costs that they have, I don't know many people that are feeling like they've got the margins to go out, eat out very much now. Do you? I mean, you know, if people like me who are in a very lucky position, you know, earn good money and I've got lots of advantages, if I'm thinking, well, I'm not sure I really feel I've got the money to be eating out too much, then that surely filters all the way down.
Because that's also gone through the roof as well, you know.
100% it has. You know, I mean, who wants to spend £45 on a bad bottle of wine? You know, I just think people are kind of over it, really.
I think they are, absolutely. Isabel, good to see you.